This is the Sound of Ideas from IdeaStream Public Media. I'm Stephanie Haney. Thank you for staying with us on your Monday. Dawson's Creek actor James Van Der Beek died last month at 48 after a battle with colorectal cancer. His death has brought renewed attention to this disease, which also killed actor Chadwick Boseman in 2020 when he was just 43. Colorectal cancer is now the leading cause of cancer-related deaths among people under age 50 in the United States. That's according to the Journal of the American Medical Association. While most cases are still found in adults over 50, rates in younger adults are rising. In 2018, the American Cancer Society updated its guidelines, recommending that average risk adults begin screening at the age of 45 rather than 50. Colorectal cancer is still highly treatable when detected early. And joining us now today to talk about preventative health measures and screening options that are helping to save people's lives, we have Dr. Joshua Somavilla, colon and rectal surgical oncologist at Cleveland Clinic. Hi, Joshua.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Also joining us by phone, we have Dr. Menden Shia, gastroenterologist at Metro Health. Dr. Shia, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me here.
And joining us by phone as well, we have one of Dr. Somavilla's patients from the Cleveland Clinic. Amy Fogarty is a teacher at Shager Heights High School. Amy, thank you for calling in. We'll make sure that we have Amy on the line, that she can hear us and everything's dialed in there, technically speaking. If you want to join the conversation, if you have a question about colon cancer or colorectal cancer, maybe a story you'd like to share, you can give us a call at 866-578-0903. You can also email us at soi@ideastream.org or message us on Instagram at The Sound of Ideas. Dr. Somavilla, I'll start by asking you, can you set the scene for us and explain what colorectal cancer is?
Yeah, so colorectal cancer is one of the more common causes of cancer and cancer death that we see here in the United States and across the world. And it's a cancer that usually starts as a precancerous polyp that takes years to usually grow and develop into cancer. And then from that point, it can cause bleeding, it can cause abdominal discomfort, and it can spread to other parts of the body. And all these things cause significant problems for the people who end up getting diagnosed with colorectal cancer.
Dr. Shia, can you expand on that for us a bit and talk about the difference between colon cancer and colorectal cancer?
Yeah, so like colorectal cancer, basically including the colon cancer and the rectal cancer, I think that's more of like difference like from a surgical standpoint, because the anatomy really matter when it comes to the surgical plan. But like overall, like for the public, like knowledge and awareness, I think we could probably just like conclude it in colorectal cancer.
And Menden, colorectal cancer cases are on the decline overall, but we're seeing more cases in people under 50. Why is it becoming more common among younger people?
That's a good question. We don't really have like one single like answer or single cause that we can blame to. It's likely like multifactorial, like let's say like changes in diet, like rising number in obesity, and then more sedentary lifestyle, and then sometimes we can talk about like the alternations in the gut microbiome may all play the role. But I think like a more important thing for the listeners to know is that colon cancer is no longer just like the disease of older adult. We actually see many young adults, young people also like develop like cancer. And then so like whenever there's like a symptom like rectal bleeding or some unexplained anemia in younger people, we should just like not be ignored.
Joshua, what are more red flag symptoms that might warrant a visit to the doctor?
I think, some of them have been mentioned. The biggest ones are usually bleeding, abdominal pain, or changes in the way your bowels are working. So things like constipation or even diarrhea. These symptoms can sometimes develop slowly, so often it's easy for people to kind of ignore them or say like, "Oh, this is probably just my hemorrhoids acting up," or something like that. And obviously sometimes these are symptoms that are embarrassing for people to talk to their doctors about. So there are a lot of reasons why people will sometimes avoid having these things evaluated promptly. I think another important thing to talk about is a lot of times by the time people develop severe symptoms from colon cancer, it's by that point become often a relatively advanced stage. And so things that are found on colonoscopy, like precancerous polyps, or even sometimes early stage cancers, often don't cause any symptoms at all. And that's why colonoscopy is an important tool that we have to find these things before they develop into significant problems.
We do have Amy Fogarty with us. Amy is a patient of Dr. Somavilla's and a teacher at Shaker Heights High School. Amy, welcome to the Sound of Ideas.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to share my story.
And that's what we would love to do right now is hear about your story, Amy. How did you first discover that something might be wrong?
Well, I actually didn't have any of those symptoms that Dr. Somavilla just spoke to, but I'm a teacher, so I'm a rule follower, and I turned 45, so I scheduled my colonoscopy. And I had my first colonoscopy in June 2023, and 4 days later, I was at school, the last day of school. I remember exactly where I was, and they called me with the results and said, "You have cancer." And immediately my mind goes to, oh my goodness, I have a husband and 3 kids and a family and other friends, and what am I going to do? And so that started a chain of appointments with Dr. Somavilla and oncology and genetic counseling and tests and blood work. And then had a surgery with Dr. Somavilla on August 1st, which was called a low anterior resection. And I had a loop ileostomy, which is where they cut your colon in half and then they divert everything to the outside of an ostomy bag. And so that was quite a change. And then I went through chemotherapy and had another surgery to reverse that ostomy bag, and then had another colonoscopy with Dr. Somavilla, and he took out a polyp and found out that that was cancerous. So that led to another set of treatments with radiation, and it's been a long journey for the past 2.5 years. Dr. Somavilla, I credit him and the oncologists at the Cleveland Clinic for saving my life. And had I not been a rule follower at the age of 45, I would not be able to have this conversation with you today. So I'm very thankful that I followed the rules and followed the advice of the expert. Could be here to hopefully encourage someone else to follow the rules as well and save their life.
Wow, Amy. I can tell that this is definitely something that's emotional for you to talk about. You can hear it in your voice there. So thank you very much for sharing your story with us. You said you're a rule follower, so that's why you got the screening at 45. Who alerted you to the fact that you should be getting that screening?
So actually, I have a friend who is in medical research, and she was actually working for a colorectal doctor in Milwaukee at the time and was like, "Hey, you're turning 45, you better get your colonoscopy." So I did. Not like I wouldn't have anyways, because I, had met with my primary care physician and he recommended it as well. But it was just that extra push from somebody who was in the field to say, "Hey, you better do this." And boy, am I glad that I did.
And what does it look like for you now from here on out? You said you're in remission, right?
Well, I hope so. So actually on President's Day, I had my set of scans that I have every 3 months, and those were clear, which is great. And my oncologist said I can graduate now to seeing them and doing the scans every 4 months. So I had a little celebration that day. And the last colonoscopy that I had with Dr. Somavilla back in December of 2025 was my first ever clear colonoscopy. So we had a little celebration then as well. But I do have some effects of all of this treatment. Since I had chemo and radiation, I have some, in quite a few, and I have four pretty major surgeries. I have quite a few scars in my body, and because of the amount of colon and rectum that Dr. Somavilla had to remove from my body, I do have some lingering functioning issues, and so my diet has had to change quite a bit. So it's hard to manage the oncologist telling you to eat the fruits and vegetables, but your body's saying, no, you can't have things with that much fiber. So I'm trying to find an even balance to make life work. But, every day is an adventure, and we're thankful that I'm here and that I can keep living my life as a mom, as a teacher, as a wife, and as a daughter.
If you're just joining us here on The Sound of Ideas, we're talking about colon cancer and colorectal cancer. We're talking with someone who recently was diagnosed with the diseases. And the number to call in if you have a question or a comment or a story you'd like to share is 866-578-0903. And you can email us at soi@ideastream.org. Amy, you mentioned, a friend sharing with you it's time for you to get this screening. That screening is a colonoscopy. Did any part of you have any hesitance? Some people are a bit hesitant about the colonoscopy procedure.
I was not hesitant because I knew it was something that needed to be done. But yes, I was a little scared of the preparation. But honestly, to be uncomfortable for 3 days, to not, have to drink liquids only one day and then take the prescriptions that the doctor gives you, and there are a number of different ways in order to clean out your colon to prepare for this test. But those 3 days of being uncomfortable, as opposed to 3+ years of your life of going to the doctor so frequently, boy, that seems like a pretty easy trade-off to me. So no hesitation, and I would encourage everyone to have no hesitation as well. It might be uncomfortable for a couple days, but in the long run, you're saving yourself a lot of stress, a lot of worry, and just your health will be better for it.
Before we let you go here, Amy, we know you're busy. You're a high school teacher. You probably have class to get to. I want to ask you, as a teacher and someone who lives an active life, how did treatment impact your day-to-day life, both while it was happening and then now, adjustments you're having to make?
So during chemotherapy, I did have to stop working based on the recommendations of my doctors. Luckily, I had led a very healthy lifestyle prior to that and was very rarely sick, so I had enough sick days in the bank. But then when the reoccurrence happened, I did have to, I came to work all the sessions during my radiation treatment, which was very challenging, but I did. And then having another surgery, I did have to have some of my colleagues give me their sick time, which was wonderful, so that I could keep going through my treatment yet still getting paid so I can keep supporting my family. But every day is a challenge right now. I don't know what food is going to work well with me still, even though it's almost been a year since my last surgery. But, you keep going, and I'm trying to add back in yoga and running and just meditation every night as well, just to get myself through it. And it does help.
Amy, we are wishing you the absolute best in your continued recovery and really hoping you get that green light that you're in remission. Thank you so much for calling into the Sound of Ideas today. Amy Fogarty, colorectal cancer patient and teacher at Shaker Heights High School. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Now, Joshua, being Amy's doctor there, you were with her every step of the way here. I want to ask you about what she mentioned there, the ostomy bag. I know what that is because I had a grandma that had colon cancer, and so she had an ostomy bag, and it never went away. But Amy was able to reverse that. Can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, so it's not uncommon, though not guaranteed, that patients will sometimes need to have an ostomy bag to get safely through surgeries. When we talk about rectal cancer in particular, depending on where the cancer is located, there are some rectal cancers that involve the anus and involve the muscles down at your bottom. And for those situations, it's basically not possible to do a curative surgery without having a permanent bag. There are other situations where we're able to do a reconnection of the colon below where a tumor is, but because of patients receiving radiation before that or other technical things that happen at surgery, the safest thing is to not have poop going through that area while it's healing. And so we have a temporary bag upstream of that eventually gets closed after they've recovered from all the surgeries. And so that's the type of situation that she was describing. That's not uncommon for people who have rectal cancer but don't need a permanent bag. An ostomy bag is something that is obviously very scary to a lot of patients. And though for a lot of people, it ends up being life-saving, and for most people, they're able to adjust to living an ordinary life, and it doesn't limit them in their day-to-day activities.
For anyone just joining us here on the Sound of Ideas, we are talking about colon cancer and colorectal cancer, and that screenings are recommended at age 45. We've got experts with us. We have a doctor from the Cleveland Clinic and also a doctor from Metro Health with us as well. So if you want to call in, the number is 866-578-0903, and you can email us at soi@ideastream.org. Mendon, can you talk to us about a colonoscopy and what that is, if that's considered a surgical procedure, and the prep that's involved?
Yes, sure. So colonoscopy is basically a very like a safe, normally outpatient procedure. Normally that including like part of a preparation process. It normally take like a day before the procedure. for the patient to drink a whole big jar of the solution to clean up all the stool from their column. So in that way, we can take a very decent look of all the corner in the column to make sure we're not missing any lesion or cancer. And then the procedure itself is actually very quick and safe. Normally, it takes just like 20, 30 minutes or so to get it done. It's also get done under like an anesthesia. Sometimes we do it probably under mild sedation or under like what we call like anesthesia assistant sedation. But anyhow, like it should be done in a very comfortable and safe way. And then depends on how many polyp normally we see during the colonoscopy. We might have the like a patient come back to do the procedure every 3 years, 5 years, or 10 years. If everything looks normal, meaning the patient doesn't really having that high risk of developing polyp, normally the patient just need to come back every 10 years. That's what we call like golden ticket. And then and also instead of colonoscopy, we can also like if patient like having like a fear to the procedure or anyhow, we can also offer some alternative testing, including like the in-home like stool test. That's also another option.
Is that as effective, the in-home stool test? I know we see commercials for this. Cologuard comes to mind. Is that just as good or not as good? What do you think, Mendon?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So stool-based DNA tests, it's actually the Cologuard test. They're very effective in screening like the early cancer or advanced polyp. But the only downside for those like stool tests is like it might not be able to see those like a relatively like smaller polyps. But polyp like still carry the potential of turning into cancer after many years. So colonoscopy is a more like comprehensive like procedure. It can not only take a look, but it can also remove the polyp at the same time. So it's like more a preventative test. But like any test get done is actually the best test. So if patient having any concern for the procedure, we could always like start with a like stool test. Like that's definitely better than no test at all.
And Mendon, a little bit about access to these kinds of tests. Are these things covered by insurance? We know that the recommended screening begins at age 45. So does that cover that for people in that age group?
I believe so, because like they're actually like under all those major society guideline, and then they're actually considered as like preventative screening testing. It's generally covered by most of the insurance plan without any out-of-pocket costs. But like coverage detail can vary. So and sometimes patient definitely having some confusion about the billing. So I would encourage people like talk to their primary care physician and then also talk to their like insurance like company to see like what's actually their coverage plan look like. And then also, many communities actually having programs that support a screening for those like patient like uninsured. I also encourage people like who doesn't have insurance also talk to your primary care physician because there might be some options available over there.
If anyone's just joining us, we are talking about colon cancer and colorectal cancer. And if you have a comment or a question, you can give us a call at 866 578 0903. And you can email us at soi@ideastream.org. Leanne from Hudson has written in, is there anything we can do to clean out our colon before a colonoscopy besides the nasty drink? So, Mendon, since we were talking about colonoscopies with you, I'll ask that question of you. Anything other than actually ingesting something that you can do to clean out the colon?
Yes, actually, I think like in the last like decades or so, we've been designing like a whole bunch of different like type of bowel preparation. In the old days, it used to be all those like large volume, which is still the most effective way to clean up everything. But cause some patient might have like a lot of like nausea, vomiting, like drinking those like large volume. So now we also have like smaller volume one, for which like your patient can have like patient will be more comfortable drinking those like smaller volume one. We even have like pill form bowel preparation. But the insurance coverage for all different type of bowel preparation actually also vary. So sometimes it might cost a lot under some insurance plan if we're prescribing the pill form bowel preparation. So that's also another thing your doctor can discuss with you. which one is actually the best for you.
We have a call now from Michelle in Cleveland. Michelle, welcome to the Sound of Ideas. Go ahead.
Hi. I'm just calling to encourage people not to be afraid. I was afraid of it. I've had, I think, 3 of them now. And they did find polyps. Fortunately, mine were all benign. But to me, the hardest part, after my first one and over the fear, is drinking all that stuff the day before and just get a magazine or a good book and stay close to the toilet. It's really not a bad procedure. And the first time I had it, they let me stay awake so I could watch, which I know that's probably weird, but I thought it was fascinating. The other 2 times, they wouldn't let me stay awake, which disappointed me because I just find it very interesting. So I'm just calling to encourage people, do it. It's not bad at all. The hardest part, like I said, is getting all that solution down. Someone I know did just take the pills. They said that was easier, but I guess I'm just goofy. I want to take the liquid. I want to make sure everything is cleaned out. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that with us, Michelle, and very happy to hear that your results were benign. So thank you very much for that. Joshua, I'd like to ask you now, why did the screening age drop to 45 from 50? Has it helped catch more cases?
It certainly has, and Amy, who was on the call earlier, is a perfect illustration of that. The reason that it dropped was the reasons that you mentioned at the beginning of the show. Is the rate of colorectal cancer is drastically increasing in people who are under the age of 50. So by starting colonoscopies at the age of 50, there are a large number of people who would be having things grow that's going undetected. So I think by dropping that age, we're significantly capturing a lot more people and preventing cancers that would otherwise be forming. I think there's still ongoing work to figure out what the best thing is to do for people who are under the age of 45, because that's a concerning age group too. And as of now, those are people who are really only getting evaluated if they're developing symptoms, which, as we talked about, can sometimes be already at a somewhat advanced stage. So I think as we learn more about what's going on in the community and in the population, there's a chance that things may change even further.
Joshua, you mentioned that there are other people who experience symptoms and they end up getting screening earlier, but who else should get cancer screenings outside of that age group, the 45-year-olds, for this?
Yeah, so certainly anybody who's considered high risk, which includes people who have a history of certain conditions like inflammatory bowel disease, like Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis. People who have a family history of colorectal cancer usually begin screening at an earlier age, depending on the age of the family members who are affected. People who have other conditions that predispose them to forming colon polyps. Those people all fall into groups where they would undergo some form of screening, usually colonoscopy, at an earlier age than even 45 potentially.
So when you talk about a family history, as I mentioned, my grandmother had colorectal cancer. I think I said colon cancer earlier, but based on what you said, I think it was colorectal cancer. So does that mean that I'm someone who should get screened potentially earlier?
Yeah, and it would depend on the age at which that family member was diagnosed, and it more impactful on your recommendations if it's a first degree relative, like a parent or a sibling. But even having a second degree relative, like a grandparent, would impact your age at recommending to start screening.
And Joshua, have you seen anything in terms of research development on colon cancer and colorectal cancer that you're keeping an eye on?
Yeah, so there's a lot of, in particular, related to the question about why this is happening in earlier, in younger patients. There's a lot of epidemiological research looking into what are the factors in the diet that are contributing to this. What are the environmental factors that are contributing to this? Is it chemicals in the environment? Is it microplastics? All these other things that people are thinking about. Is it related to the bacteria in the colon, which is something that Dr. Shia mentioned earlier on? These are all things that there's a lot of active research going on to help figure out, like, why is this happening to younger people? And is there any interventions that we could do to help lower those risks?
All right, I want to thank our guests for calling in for us today. This is all the time that we have for this particular conversation. Dr. Joshua Somavilla, colon and rectal surgical oncologist at Cleveland Clinic, we appreciate your time.
You're welcome, and thank you so much for having me.
And also Dr. Menden Shia, gastroenterologist at Metro Health. Thank you for calling in today.
Thank you for having me today.